In 1997, Moon Remix RPG Adventure was released on the PlayStation and started an entirely new genre of video game, named Lov-de-like, after its developer Lov-de-Lic. The game became a cult classic for its parody of the RPG conventions, focused more on pacifism and saving monsters rather than slaying them for EXP. While the game remained exclusive to Japan until a Nintendo Switch release in 2020, Moon was massively influential in a similar way that Earthbound was, helping to inspire many indie developers with their own RPG and adventure games. One such developer who was heavily inspired by Moon was the creator of Undertale, Toby Fox. Toby cited Moon as one of the primary reasons that Undertale is the way it is, showing how impactful this cult classic PS1 game has been to the modern RPG genre. With this context in mind, Stray Children by Onion Games, led by one of the original game designers behind Moon, Yoshiro Kimura, feels like a full circle moment. Just as Undertale was heavily inspired by Moon, Stray Children is very heavily inspired by Undertale, narratively and gameplay wise. Stray Children has been one of the most interesting, emotional, and thought-provoking games that I have played all year. It is also one of the most obtuse and infuriating. It's Undertale if you're a masochist. Stray Children is not a direct sequel to Moon, but it absolutely positions itself as a successor in certain ways. The game's entire opening and general premise is a parody of Moon. It follows the player character, known as the Dog-Faced Child, who, while looking for his missing game developer father, stumbles into the world of an unreleased, possibly cursed retro video game called Crescent Moon. As that game's very data falls apart around the player, they fall from the sky and wake up in a world of monsters, one they have to explore while on the hunt for their dad. It's about a child falling from the sky into a world of monsters, meeting many colourful characters along the way. Very Undertale-esque. And the similarities to Undertale don't end here. When an enemy monster is encountered, the player has the option of fighting and killing it like a traditional RPG. Combat is even handled using a time-based button press, but alternatively, players can use the talk command to strike up a conversation with the monsters and pacify them that way. Words can be more powerful than any weapon, and following a successful talking down of the Older, the general name given to all the monsters in this game, their heart feels lighter and their souls are released, offering some parting words to the player as they go. Obviously, for anyone who has played Undertale, this implies the existence of a pacifist and genocide run of Stray Children, and you would be right to think that. Stray Children takes its encounters quite seriously, almost as if every encounter is a boss fight of some kind. This is proven with the conclusion of any encounter, as once the player has either defeated or talked down an enemy, it is gone for good. The Older is removed from the pool of random encounters until a new game is started. The only way to reinitiate a fight later on is to just run away the first time. So it is very possible to save every Older or kill every Older, and the game keeps track of both of these options. Unlike Undertale though, doing either option doesn't impact the story in any major way. There aren't multiple endings depending on if you save, kill, or an in-between of all monsters. Killing Olders provides more EXP to the player and is generally the easier option of the two, while the reward for sparing Olders is a deeper understanding of what the themes of this game are all about, and just a general feeling of satisfaction. The reason I am saying this all now is because for players going into Stray Children, I want to be clear about expectations. I really enjoyed Stray Children, and I believe that everyone should go into this game as blind as possible. Because of that, I won't be talking at all about the story and events that take place. They are best left to be discovered by yourself. However, the game is hella frustrating at times for anyone who wants to go the pacifist route. It's practically the complete opposite of Undertale, where the genocide route was made purposefully obnoxious and monotonous to punish players who wanted to try it. Stray Children's genocide run is remarkably easy, but significantly less satisfying than its pacifist run, which can reach severe levels of complexity later on. So why is the pacifist route so complicated? It's because every encounter is essentially a riddle, one with an overabundance of options and some that require a lot, and I mean a lot, of forward planning. To compare it back to Undertale, that game's talk option often provides 1 to 3 options, and the puzzle is figuring out which one to say to the enemy. Sometimes multiple options work, sometimes you need to say the same option multiple turns in a row, but the challenge comes more so from surviving the bullet hell attacking phase and treating the talk option as your attack. Stray Children also has the same bullet hell attacking phase, which is unique to each encounter and has different difficulty levels, but the talk option is less about one-liners and more about having a conversation with the enemy. You aren't just flirting and patting a dog on the head here, you're a psychiatrist and they are your patient, and you need to say the right words in the right order to calm the older down and hit upon the issues that they are each individually facing. Each encounter comes with 6 options for conversation, and often each encounter will involve saying at least 3 to 5 topics to the enemy before they calm down. Figuring out what needs to be said is the riddle that makes up the most engaging parts of Stray Children's gameplay, but also its most frustrating, as what to say isn't necessarily clear, and in almost all cases, if the player picks the wrong option in a conversation, it resets the entire chat. You may have picked the first 2 options correctly, but if you got the third one wrong, that is all the progress reset. Time to restart the conversation from the top. This can make battles feel exceptionally repetitive, especially the boss older battles at the end of every area, which also require unlocking conversation topics on top of having to pick the right options. And some of these older encounters require the player to pick the same conversation topic over and over again, like it's some classic Japanese adventure game. It can end up feeling very obtuse. It is not just trial and error though. These are riddles after all, and a riddle wouldn't be fun if there wasn't some kind of clue on how to solve it. The player can find these clues in all sort of places, but more often than not it can be found in one of 3 areas. The most common is in the book, a bestiary that fills out when you find the shell of an older in the overworld. Across the descriptions and images of each page can be hints to their riddles, as well as other hints like if an older is hiding a hidden treasure chest in their encounter. The second clue is in the encounter themselves. Sometimes an older will say something that hints at what the player should do, and other times during one of their attacks there can be a subtle visual hint on what the solution might be. The final clue comes from objects and item descriptions that players can interact with in the overworld. This could be a signpost, a piece of dialogue from an NPC, or even an item description. Pretty much every boss older's hint comes from an item that you have to find in the overworld. There isn't a single encounter or overworld puzzle in this game that doesn't have a hint somewhere in the game. Except for maybe one, there was an encounter very late into the title that asked me to recite pi to 12 places, and because I'm a big old nerd, I figured that out immediately. But it's possible that there was a hint in the game that I just missed because I didn't need to know it. So a lot of Stray Children will be spent exploring, interacting with NPCs and objects, and taking down notes on everything discovered, using it to defeat and solve the riddles of the olders the player encounters. That's where the fun and challenge comes from, with the frustration coming from some of the repetitiveness of these conversations when progress is reset because the wrong dialogue was chosen. But if that's all it was, I wouldn't be calling this game a title for masochists. No, it's the delivery of some of these hints and the additional requirements of some of these encounters that pushes Stray Children into a one-of-a-kind strain on the psyche. I already mentioned that some conversations just involve saying the same words over and over again until something new happens, but there are also conversations where the hints just do not help at all. Like this battle against a Phoenix Older, What are these dialogue options? How does this relate to the hint that I got in the book? Sometimes there's a trick to the random options given, like the first letter of the correct dialogue spelling out a word, but not in this case. These are just random bird noises. Sometimes the player will receive a hint on the solution to talk down an enemy, but said solution is found in random fluff text that the player read at the start of the game, and this encounter is at the end of the game. Yes, Stray Children is that type of game, to ask the player to have an item to hand that they picked up 13 hours ago in a random room to solve the current puzzle. You don't have that item? Too bad, no dialogue option is going to work for you now, and saving the older is going to be impossible. Every boss encounter falls into this category, by the way. If the player doesn't have the boss's associated item within their inventory, the boss won't even have a conversation with the player. Most of the time, this item can be found shortly before boss encounters, but this isn't always the case. And this brings me to the final icing on this frustration cake. An aspect of the game I feel obligated to share, as I wish I knew about it when I started. Stray Children is a game filled to the brim with points of no return. In many ways, Stray Children feels like the complete opposite of Moon, and this is one of the major differences. While Moon was an open world game, letting the player explore and tackle the various monster riddles in any order, Stray Children is a linear experience all the way to the end. Once you have left an area, most of the time you can never return to it. So if you didn't save or defeat an older, didn't fully find all the chests or solve all the riddles, then tough stuff, you can't go back. This is how encounters where items are important become the most frustrating parts of the game, because you might not realize you lack an item needed to save an older, and that item was 10 hours ago, locked behind several points of no return. Sometimes an item can be found hidden within another older encounter, and all of this is absolutely by design. There is only one save file in Stray Children that overwrites itself when you rest at a campfire, or sometimes automatically when you end a story act. This game is almost certainly designed around the player missing things on a first playthrough, which is re-emphasized by the fact that the game doesn't explain how any of this stuff works. There are no tutorials in Stray Children, it's all just about the player figuring out what they need to do. So in a sense, I am defying what the game wants in this video by explaining all of this to you, a potential player of Stray Children. But I'm only doing this because of how much unneeded frustration I felt when playing parts of this game, especially in its second half when the solution to puzzles become more obtuse. I am the kind of gamer who aims to get every single confidant in a single run of Persona, and max out all support conversations I can in every run of Fire Emblem. So being locked out of saving every older on my first run brought me unneeded levels of anxiety. But, and what I'm about to say is of course done with hindsight, and it's specifically aimed at players who are just like me, who also do all of the stuff I just mentioned in other games. Stray Children is designed around the player going through this game at least once completely blind. I played through Stray Children twice, achieving a 100% pacifist run on my second playthrough, which was a much less stressful experience now that I knew the solution to a lot of puzzles and I knew how this game ticked. On a second run, I was aware that I needed certain items for certain solutions and which triggers would force me forward within the game. My obtained knowledge became useful to me, and New Game Plus was much faster to play through because I knew the solution to a lot of puzzles already, which made all the encounters far less anxiety-inducing. So, what message do I think you should all take away from this PSA of a video? You should absolutely play Stray Children, and when you do not worry yourself about going for 100%. Just take the game as it comes, and move on if you can't figure out a solution to a puzzle. I say this with all earnestness, because everything else within the game is an incredible experience. The vibes of Stray Children are peak Lov-de-Lic. The visuals, the dialogue, the story, it's some of the best I've experienced this year. The game is both wacky, fun, mixed with poignant dialogue and messaging that tackle themes of adult hardships and growing up. Serious issues such as the problems of crunch and overworking and the depths people will sink in order to find love are discussed alongside new contemporary problems like getting sucked into flame wars on social media or being obsessed with stocks and shares to the point of financially ruining yourself. The absolute breadth of everyday adult problems that Stray Children wants to tackle is seriously impressive. But it also touches upon the ideas of how adult problems can affect children and the importance of growing up healthy and proper to have a better life. Stray Children is the game that's made me at times the most emotional, most uncomfortable, most engaged I've been with a narrative, but also the most stressed out I've been while still being unable to put the controller down. Heck, I played the entire game twice through because I was determined to see everything Stray Children had to offer, and I still feel like I might have missed some things given I didn't get every Steam achievement. As an aside, I played this on both PC and the Steam Deck, and it works really well on both. I'm sure it also works wonderfully on Nintendo Switch and Switch 2. In the end, I still think I prefer Moon to Stray Children, but the two are such different games in what they want to say and how they go about it, that they aren't really that comparable, despite the obvious homages the latter plays to the former. What I can say is that Onion Games have knocked it out of the park with this title, and I encourage fans of Undertale or any Lov-de-likes to give it a go. And if you are a player like me who really needs to get that 100% in a single run and you don't have the capacity to play the game through multiple times, well, I understand your plight. And while I recommend going into this game blind and doing multiple runs, just for reference, my first playthrough took me about 24 hours, but my second playthrough took significantly less, pretty much less than half of that. In roughly a week from now, I will be releasing my entire recorded 100% playthrough of that second run through the game over on our rarely used Source Gaming archive channel. If you really need a guide to help you through this game, that will serve as a good reference, although I did miss a single chest annoyingly, but I'll point out where it is in the video description of the appropriate chapter. Okay, I want to thank Onion Games for sending us a copy of this game to review, and with ample time for me to get to play through the game. Let me know in the comments if Stray Children is a game that you are interested in playing. Was it already on your radar, or is this your first time hearing about it? Let us know. At the end of it all, I want to give Stray Children a 9 out of 10, entirely because of the experience I had playing through it. While I was frustrated and complaining a lot, I couldn't stop myself from playing the game more. And I think it's all about the mindset that you go into the game with. If I had a more open mindset, a more willingness to just move on if I couldn't figure something out, then I would have enjoyed this game significantly more while playing through it. I don't have that mindset because I'm not used to being so railroaded like this in modern games. But having come to terms with that, I can look back and say that this game is wonderful, and I highly recommend it. As always, we want to thank our patrons. The $5 plus tier are appearing on screen right now. If you want to know how you can join them, please check the description down below. Please help us survive this YouTube landscape by liking and commenting down below. Engagement really is the best way to push content up nowadays. And always make sure to subscribe if you haven't already so that you always remember to return to the source.